Thank you, Ajay, for such a generous and kind introduction. Um, uh, and yes, my sister, I'm sure, has a lot of creative things to say about me. It was fun. It was fun growing up in a time period when there weren't the Indian population wasn't as significant, but it also provided unique opportunities to learn about Swami and to really understand Swami and internalize Swami. And over the years, he's given a lot of wonderful opportunities to continue that learning. Um, as Brother Ajay noted, I get to work on the learning platform, and one of the things that we are working on is to bring integrated character education into every training that's done at Amazon, and how to bring. Swami said, "The world will know me through my teachings, through my education." And it feels an amazing opportunity and blessing to be able to do that at the scale of impact, to be able to impact millions of people around the world and bring character education and Swami's teachings essentially into every class, and to do it without the cultural, without the religious or even spiritual angles to it. And that has been a long journey, despite being in SSE, despite being in having been exposed to Swami's teachings all my life. It took a very intense journey of last 10 years to really understand the universality of Swami's message. And Sister Anu asked me to share some of these thoughts. And so over the next few minutes, I will share some of my own journey and kind of my own discoveries and realization in understanding the universality of Swami's message and being able to communicate it in that context. Especially over the last few years, it's been a rough ride for everyone. Recently, there was a study in UK that did a survey of children, youth, teenagers. Very large study, involved like 10,000 youth or something like that. And almost 70% of the youth said they're afraid for the future. And if you think about it, the pandemic, what it has done, and, it's like the amount of toll that it has taken on humanity, the amount of lives lost. And, we're not sure if we're at the end of it. It seems like we are there, but then we're not. We're there, we're not. It's going back and forth. So there's obviously anxiety, and this is probably the most disruptive thing that these children have experienced in their life. And then you add on top of that all of the environmental crisis that seems to be upon humanity. Crazy weather, extreme weather that the whole world is experiencing. The extinction of animals at a record pace. And then you add on top of that all the political strife. And it seems like truth is hardly relevant anymore. It's just who can argue their point, and it's all opinion. And so it's just very divisive political environment. You look at all of this, and then there's the recent UN study that said that humanity is on track to becoming extinct in about 100 years. So it's like doom and gloom everywhere you look. And naturally, it's causing a lot of anxiety, and especially for the youth. I think, I know there's a number of Group 4 and Group 3 SSC teachers here, so I know we all see that to some extent or the other. And this is the children that supposedly have, are fortunate to be growing up with Swami. He knew this was coming, and he's assured us in so many ways, in so many times. In the discourse in 1968, he said, many hesitate to believe that things will improve, that life will be happy for one and all, full of joy, and that the golden age will recur. Let me assure you that this Dharma Swarupa, this divine body, has not come in vain. It will succeed in averting the crisis that has come upon humanity. just those words seem so relevant, so powerful, so timely for this time, for this period. But he gave us this assurance 50 years ago, and multiple times, even in 2009, he said, this avatar will succeed in the mission that it has come for. I will take my own sweet time to get there, but I will succeed. And he's got his master plan, and it's all part of this master plan. Sometimes I feel like we humans are a resilient bunch. We don't change that easily. So he's got to shock us a little bit, and all of this is part of that. It's to bring us back to our senses, and so all of this is part of the divine plan. And when we think about it from that perspective, it's very reassuring. And for the children also, it's like, is there more loving promise that you can give them? Is there greater reassurance that you can give them? But unfortunately, all of that requires faith in Swami. And for us, maybe we have all had the chance to experience Swami firsthand. And we all have our stories of what caused us to develop that faith, what caused us to develop that deep conviction. What about others that have not had the same opportunity? What about the children? As an SSC teacher, I work with a lot of children. None of them have really had the opportunity to see Swami. So they have, and they're growing up in this environment, which is generally skeptical of any religion. Where do they find that solace? Where do they find that reassurance? And as I think about all this, okay, fine, do I just say, hey, I found my happiness, I found my satisfaction, I found my reassurance? Lucky for me, I'm a Sai devotee, and too bad for them that they're not. Obviously, that's not the right thinking, right? That's not a very productive thinking. And then think about, okay, what would Mother Sai want? The fact of the matter is, Swami loves every one of the 8 billion people in this world the same way that he loves me. Mother Sai loves all her children. And if I'm content that, whichever way I count, maybe we've managed to reach 200 children with SSC. So, but there are 800,000 youth children in the Seattle area. And if I'm content with, satisfying that 200 children maybe at best, and then not thinking about the other 79,800 children, what do I go tell Swami? Swami, look at me, I did awesome. I shared your message with these 200 children. And the first thing, if I were Swami, at least I would ask is, and what about the other 79,800? So some of these thoughts a number of years ago started like, yeah, that's right. And why am I not able to reach them? Clearly, Swami's message is not limited. It's timeless. It's universal. That means if I'm not able to reach them, there's some limitation within me. I am not able to understand. I'm not able to convey his message in a universal way. And I remember one morning, early morning, about 3 o'clock, back in 2011, just a few months before Swami leaving his form, I remember having these thoughts and thinking, Swami, I just feel completely unprepared, unable to serve you in a meaningful manner. What am I doing? What is it that I should be doing more? How do I reach more people? Not because I'm trying to somehow transform or save the world. That's your job. But for all this that you have given me, this opportunity, this exposure, this growth, what is it that I can give back? How can I serve you? How can I find a way to connect with people in a way? Because I feel like my language, my approach is too narrow. Every other sentence of mine starts with Swami says. Well, Swami says is great for people that understand what that means, but it means nothing for others. And if at all, it'll come across a bit weird in the nicest way, and probably much worse, more realistically. So as I started thinking about this, Swami put me in more and more situations where I ended up having to talk. And initially, a lot of my language was, well, it's my spiritual teacher and all that. But as soon as you start with that, people are like, okay, the problem is a lot of the people have been exposed to people trying to convert, people trying to really, get followers, grow their numbers, whatever, right? So there's always that inherent suspicion that and the wall comes up immediately, and the ability to reach breaks. So how do you actually communicate? I took a few instances, but then I understood that really the problem is the way that I'm framing it. Because what Swami talked about are true, timeless, universal teachings. And I actually realized this reading Summer Showers in Vrindavan, 1996. Swami talks about Ramayana. And he says in there that Ramayana is timeless. It is for all people at all times. It will be ever fresh. It never becomes stale. I was like, why is Swami saying this with such emphatic reassurance? What is it why do I not see it that way? Why do I see it as a Indian mythological text? And what is it that's preventing me from seeing that? And as I started reading this, in the very first chapter, at the very top, there's, Swami usually starts his discourse with a poem. And in that one, he says, true spiritual education is one that fosters universal peace, dispels narrow-mindedness, and fosters unity, harmony, and mutual cooperation. He said that is what spiritual education is. It brings universal peace. Well, nobody in the world can disagree with that. Hey, everybody wants peace. It dispels narrow-mindedness. Okay, again, something that we all want, right? We want to develop broad-mindedness. Fosters unity, harmony, and mutual cooperation. And that paragraph right there just struck me. I'm like, this is universal. There is nothing here that any person from any culture would disagree. And then as you go down, read Ramayana in that context, and Swami's explanations of it, and his quotes, suddenly everything started making so much more universal sense. I had this, there's this beautiful video on YouTube of Narayana Upanishad, the chanting of Narayana Upanishad by the Bharti students, and then the Bharti Vedam group. And they superimpose on the screen the translation for each of the lines as they're chanting them. And and I happened to be listening to it one day, and just the day before I had read where Swami said, there is divine, he talked about how science and spirituality, and he said science is getting closer and closer to spirituality. And he said, today the scientists understand what the atom is, what the energy that he said. And he said, no one has really understood the energy that's inside the atom, but that is divine energy. And he talks about Anu, right? Anu, atom, right? It's every atom is saturated with divinity. There is nothing in creation that's not. And if you really think about it, okay, so yes, that's right. In the manifested universe, everything is made up of atoms. And if every one of them, if that divine energy that's inside that atom is indeed divinity, well, then yeah, there is no place that divine doesn't exist, including every one of us. And from that context, if you hear the Narayana Upanishad, it is mind-blowing. It's actually probably one of the best lessons in atomic physics. But there's difference to it. We think of atoms as inert, or at least as without consciousness. And the difference is, Swami says that energy, it's Sat, Chit, Ananda. It is truth. It is all that exists. In fact, it is the manifestation of the energy that this entire universe is. This universe is, the manifestation is not real, but the energy is real. It exists. It is beautiful. I mean, look at that. All the diversity, so much richness in just looking outside of nature has come from just a regrouping of those atoms. It's just mind-boggling beauty. Every one of us is a collection of those atoms. And yet, look at the diversity. Look at the beauty. Look at the differences. And in so many ways, and we are just a collection of atoms, just like every other animal, every other creature, every other plant, every other stone, every other aspect of this universe. Such beautiful diversity from this one singular energy that has manifested itself. And the most powerful of it, he says, it's awareness. It's aware, it's self-aware, it's consciousness. So if science is clearly not quite there yet. We have understood the first parts of it, but we haven't understood the awareness part of it. And that awareness is what Swami said we will discover in this century. And suddenly we will understand. Even now, if you think about it, we're slowly starting to understand the relation of mind-body. Swami talked about this, 30 years ago. Slowly, we're starting to understand a lot of this. And there's a lot of, more growth to come. But that teachings are that universal, and we're just not able to understand it. So suddenly, Narayana Upanishad is atomic physics. Oh my God, this is amazing. And if you have a chance, absolutely pull up the video and just listen to every single word of it. Look at the translation in the context of that. It's basically describing Narayana is nothing but that energy. And if you live in that awareness of energy, then what does that do? Well, suddenly all distinctions disappear. You basically live in the context of Atmic awareness. When you are in the context of Atmic awareness, when we are in that context, then all of this, we realize it's temporary, it's transient. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. So every one of our actions now focus on the greater good. Every action is focused not from individual gain, but from the universal perspective. And suddenly every action changes. It's, if I think about, in fact, as I was reflecting on that, I realized, this is what is good and bad. If you think about it, if we take away all of the nuances and we focus on if we take away all cultural contexts, all religious notions, all language context, and really just focus on what is good and bad. And if we were to kind of take all of the definitions and just step back a couple of steps and look at them, we would come to a conclusion, and we could do this. I've done this exercise with multiple SSC and study circle groups, and we would come to the conclusion that good, we define as good people that think of situations, problems, world, whatever, from the broader context. They always focus on the broader context. See, Gandhiji became good. He became a leader, an idol, because he thought he didn't put himself first. He put everybody else first. He demonstrated selflessness. He put the country first. But even as he was fighting the country, if he went and fought with the British and did all of the war and all of this, then he would have been a hero. He would have been a national hero. But the world over would not revere him. But they revere him today because he saw humanity in his enemies, so-called enemies, or people that were oppressing. In the British also, he saw humanity and he said, I will not hurt them. I will not cause them pain. And so he saw that he really experienced and lived this unity of all people. And so the whole world reveres him as a leader. as an idol. And we consider him good. Whereas, so the smaller the circle that I draw, if I focus just on myself, I become very selfish, I become bad. The larger the circle I draw, the better I become. And when my circle encompasses the entire world, I become good for the whole world. So every day, in every action, I have the choice of what state of mind am I going to operate from? What circle am I going to draw? If that circle is very narrow, then I will become not so good. If the broader the circle, the better that I will become. I mean, think about this. This happens every day at our workplace. When I get caught up at work and I'm focusing on my project, then every person that I come across either is helping me achieve my goal, my project, and therefore is my friend, or is getting in the way of me achieving my goal and therefore becomes a foe. So everyone becomes a friend or a foe, depending on whether they're helping me achieve my goal or not. And in the process, I'll create rifts, I'll create enemies. But for the guy above me, who both parts of the organization belong, now he has to deal with two groups not getting along. Why? Because I saw that other group as my enemy, my foe, and so therefore I now have created a complication. And as soon as I see them as a foe, they see me as a foe, and now we have two groups fighting. And unfortunately, the poor guy above, the next level up, he's going to have to try to rationalize this. And in that process, I have detracted the goals of the organization. The leader will not see that. Of course, he'll see that. Of course, he'll know that I'm the one that has caused this trouble. No, I might be fully justified in what I'm doing, but he knows. So when the next opportunity comes up, when he has the next tough problem that needs to be solved, will that leader look at me? Well, they'll probably look at me and they'll say, not Ananta. He doesn't know how to get along with people. Let me pass him on to the next guy who actually knows how to get along with people. So on the other hand, if I were to not see that, and if I were to focus the broader perspective of the organization, then the leader will be like, whenever things come up, this person, they're not caught up about themselves. They're trying to do the right thing for the organization. More than likely, that's the person that's likely to get the next interesting assignment. That's the person that's likely to get the next opportunity, the next promotion. So see, even at workplace, the same fundamental philosophy, truth, the broader awareness, that's what works. And in this time of turbulence, the current turbulence, the reason, Swami said, he explained so many ways, in so many times, he said, the reason you're having this problem is you have forgotten the true foundational principles. These foundational principles of the unity of man, the oneness of man, the Atma Dharma, that all of these divisions are not real. They're created by the mind. Overcome that. It's the mind that needs to constantly separate itself from everything. It's the mind that needs to search for that individual. And that mind is what creates all of this conflict. And instead, if we focus on the oneness, the Atma, then all of this will go away. It works everywhere. It works in organizations, it works in the family, in organizations, at the nation. And it is because we have forgotten that we're having all this strife. In today's thing, it's like my rights versus, well, you know what, this is my freedom, my rights. Focus on individuality has grown. The focus on the broader has reduced. And so, problems start. And the solution out of it is very simple. It's discernment. So for the children, for all of the people that are struggling right now, we teach them discern. Don't focus on the temporary. Don't make your decisions on the temporary. This intense debate right now going on about vaccines and not vaccines in this country. I remember sitting through a similar debate 30, 40 years ago, where there was this intense debate on whether seatbelts should be worn or not. Oh my God, there was such a debate about seatbelts. Individual freedom, rights, how seatbelts constrain me in an emergency. Over time, that went away. I don't think people are talking about that today. So all of these things this is too much individuality and not enough looking at the broader. So understanding this, recently I had the wonderful opportunity to talk to the entire organization. I talked about, let your work be in the betterment of the broader organization, and you will automatically experience success always. It becomes too narrow, then you will struggle. And everybody connected with it. There you go, Swami's thing of what is Atma Dharma. Everybody connected with that. Isn't that beautiful? As we take the time to understand, every quote of Swami is so universal. It is applicable to any walk of life, any situation. As we understand that, we are empowered. Each one of us is empowered to the extent that, if you think about the whole country, is like you look at Satya Nadella, every other word of his that he gives talk, empathy, broad-mindedness, inclusion. The world is dying for Swami's message. We all have it. The problem is that we have constrained it to a very narrow setting. We have compartmentalized it. And I hope that this my journey that I've just shared with you inspires you to break through those compartments. Just break free of those compartments and see the universality of his message and share, because when we do that, we might uplift one person. And what greater gift can we give to our beloved Saima than to bring a little hope, a smile, a cheer on another one of her children. And with that, I think I'm at time. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I truly appreciate the opportunity that Sister Anu, Brother Ajay, and all of you have given me in sharing. At the end of the day, there's nothing more beautiful and nothing more precious than to reminisce his words and to reflect on his message. Jai Sai Ram.